Convince them. I need you to convince them. Tell them you're capable of being a leader.
I'm capable of being.
You're capable of being a leader. Tell them I trust you at being a leader. Were y'all trying to convince them of that? I couldn't tell. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here tonight. We're going to continue the series in talking about leadership. And every time I think I want to go in one direction, I'm pulled in a different direction. And it's because of the times that we're in right now. And tonight we're going to talk about leading in tough times. So we're going to talk about leading in tough times. It's easy to lead when you're winning, right? It's easy to lead when you're 50 points ahead. It's easy to lead when everything is clicking, all the I's are being dotted, all the T's are being crossed. It's easy, but in tough times, in tough situations, it's not as easy. So I want to arm you with some information which ultimately will become knowledge, which ultimately will become wisdom to help you lead through tough times. Okay, can we do that? So before that, I want to remind you of what we talked about last time, last second Wednesday. And we talked about, does anybody remember? Building your team, your inner circle, building your inner circle, and why that's important. And so we're going to look at a 2-hour movie real quick to remind us. Yeah, we're going to look at it to remind us why it's important to build the right team. Just want to remind you why it's important. Make sure you got the right team members around you. Just want to remind you why it's important to have the right team members around you.
It's smarter to travel in groups.
All right. Got to have the right team members on your team. Your inner circle is very important, and we talked about why last time. Don't want to bore you about what we said last time. So, again, tonight we're going to talk about leading through tough times. We're going to talk about leading through tough times. I want to remind you of something, remind you that everyone in this room is a leader. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to actually lead through tough times. I touched on that a little bit in the past, but I felt like I kind of shortchanged you, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to talk about why everyone is a leader. Did I do that? Okay, and then in tough times, the place we have to lead from is not our head, not our emotions, and we'll talk about that in more detail, but we have to lead from our heart in the tough times, okay? So everyone is a leader. I need to remind you of that. Everyone is a leader in your gifting, right? So if I tried to be a leader in ballet, I would probably fail miserably. I could try it, I could do it, and some of my skills could adapt to it, but because I can't do ballet. I've never done ballet. I haven't spent any time doing ballet. I don't have any knowledge of doing ballet. I probably wouldn't do really well. So you have to identify your gifting. And when everyone in here identifies their gifting, and we all work together like those ants in our gifting as leaders, we can do anything. Collectively, we can conquer anything. We can change society today. We can change the ills of everything that's going on. So this is where you'll be most effective as a leader when you're operating in your gifting. Or operating in your purpose. What is that? I don't know what it is, again, but I want to help you try to identify what it is for you. And you have to identify what it is. It's the thing that brings you the greatest joy. What is it that brings you the greatest joy? What do you do that brings you the greatest joy? Also, what would you do for free? God forbid if you were out of work, didn't have any money, and you had to get up every single day to go do something. What would that something be? What would it be? What do you know the most about? What have you spent countless amounts of hours talking about, reading on, or actually doing? Doing research, watching Netflix about? What do you know the most about? And oftentimes, we know what our purpose is, but we sprinkle our purpose with doubt. Like, for example, many years ago, I identified my purpose, and that is being a teacher. But I immediately said, well, I can't be a teacher because I don't think I can manage that many kids, or I don't think I could, be in a classroom all day long. I don't think I could, want to take the summer off. So I came up with all these reasons why I couldn't be a teacher in that sense. Right? The lifestyle I think I want to live, I don't know if a teacher's salary would give that to me. So I came up with a whole bunch of what we call mind viruses that prevented me from walking that out. But then one day I realized that I could be a teacher in other capacities. Right? And in other capacities, I could probably fulfill or check off some of those things on my list. So I became a financial advisor. And I took the approach of teaching people about finances. And I got a lot of fulfillment out of it because of the teaching aspect. And what I'm doing right here, right now, I'm also getting fulfillment because it's in a teacher's role. So most people, you probably know what your purpose is. You probably know what your gifting is, but you've probably also, like I said, sprinkle some doubt on what that purpose is because you don't believe it can do X, Y, and Z. But I need you to believe that it can do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and the rest of the alphabet. Because when you operate in that, when you function in that, that's when you're going to be your best. That's when you're going to be your greatest. That's when you're going to be the leader that God called you to be. That's when you're going to be blessed so that you can be a blessing. Okay? Because that's what we're supposed to do. So, what brings you the greatest joy? What would you do for absolutely nothing? And what do you know the most about? And we're going to spend some time talking about knowledge. Let's get to how to lead during tough times. We know we have some tough times, right? So we have strained relationships with law enforcement throughout our country, right? We have the Ferguson situation. We have the Charleston situation that just took place. There are opportunities in those situations for someone to lead. And I say opportunities because oftentimes, even in tough situations and circumstances, that's where we find our greatest opportunities. That's when we see people rise to levels that they've never, ever risen to before. That's when we see greatness on so many different levels. But we need leaders. We need people like us that are going to make a difference in our communities to extinguish some of these ills, right? So there are some tough times right now. So we're going to talk about, okay, how do we lead during those tough times? Because we have people that look up to us, right, that follow us, that are looking for answers. I was in New Orleans last week, and I met there was an AME conference of pastors or bishops, I'm not sure which one, but I met a pastor from Charleston, South Carolina. And I asked him, how was it in Charleston? What was the climate in Charleston? He said, it's pretty tough, primarily because they hadn't buried all of the victims of that Charleston massacre. And then I asked him, so, who's stepping up as leaders to help heal that community and help get people through that situation? And he said, the church primarily. And then I asked him, I said, well, what are you guys doing? And he didn't talk a whole lot about what they were doing, right? And that's primarily because there's not a whole lot of leadership there. And unfortunately, in our communities, there's not a whole lot of leadership. Typically, you have people that show up whenever there's an issue. But we need people to show up all the time, right? We need people to show up all the time. We need people, we don't have too many great leaders because we don't have anybody getting shot at. When you think about the leaders that impacted the world and made change, they got shot at. Martin Luther King got shot at. President Kennedy got shot at. Like him or not, Malcolm X got shot at. And I mean that literally, but also figuratively. Not too many people care a whole lot about what Jesse Jackson does, someone who's been identified as a leader in our community. No real shots at him, no darts at him. I'm not talking about gunshots, but nobody, As a matter of fact, in the Ferguson situation, they said when he got there, well, go home, we got this, right? But we need leaders because we've been taught everything rises and falls with leadership. So we have to be in a place where we are the leaders to affect our communities. When I'm leading through a tough time, I have to be intentional. What that means is I have to wake up with the intention that I am a leader. I have to wake up with the intention that I am a leader. And because we know that I'm a leader in my gifting, I have to wake up and say, I'm the leader in this area, so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to stay in my lane and do my part as a leader. But I have to be intentional about that. I mean, I have to wake up and be proactive about doing that. So if there's a tough time, a tough situation in your home, if there's a tough situation on your job, if you're a coach and you're going through a tough situation, you have to be intentional and deal with it head on. Go at that situation head on. You have to make it a part of you. It can't be happenstance. It can't be, well, I know it's a tough situation at work. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go in at work. And I know people are sad or it's a tough time. People are getting laid off or whatever the bad situation is. I'm going to go get my cup of coffee like I normally do. And then if something comes up, I'll deal with it. That's not being intentional. Being intentional is getting up knowing that, okay, I might face this or that at work, and I'm going to be prepared to deal with it. And I'm going to lead the folks who look up to me and who follow me, okay? So I have to go at that tough situation or circumstance head on. I have to be knowledgeable. Knowledge helps you accept responsibility. And the truth lies in the facts. About 3 weeks ago, I was in Columbia, South Carolina. And many of you have seen a video that I posted online. And I sat down, and the day that I was there, they were doing the first vote on whether or not the flag in South Carolina should come down. And I was there for another meeting and didn't know what was going on, and I had to park 3 blocks away to get to the building that I was going to. I walk up, and I see all this stuff going on, so I go into my meeting, I come back out, and it's died down. Still a bunch of media trucks there, but it's still died down. So I walk over because this guy had on a vest that was basically made out of the Confederate flag. So I'm like, I got to get a picture of this because my friends, they're not going to believe this. I got to get a picture of this. So I go over and I sit down on this bench. Him and his buddies, they're sitting there and they're talking to each other. And so I kind of snap some pictures. And then one of the guys comes over. This guy, he's probably in his 60s, Caucasian gentleman. And he was obviously for the flag staying up. And so I have probably maybe twice in my life experienced blatant racism. Blatant, right? Not often. Perceived possibly, if I'm in a bad mood and it happened to be a white guy, yeah, you were being racist. And I brought that on myself, quite frankly. But I sat down with this guy, and it was obvious where he stood because he spent time educating me on the real history of the Confederate flag. And so I had to make a choice. If you want to argue, I'll argue a point, upside. I'll say the sky's plaid, and I'll defend it left and right. I got slides, I got charts, and I got slides. If you want to have a good argument, we can have a good argument. And so I said to myself, I don't want to argue this time. I just want to hear this guy out. And I sat there for about 15 minutes, and he just gave me knowledge on why that flag should stay up. And he gave me information on why that flag should stay up. Now, I had a bunch of friends actually saw this video, and it was one friend of mine who was African American, and they had an interesting perspective. They said, you know what, this guy sounded really intelligent. And if I didn't know the real history, I would have believed him. And I was like, wow. So I wonder how many people he's convinced on why that flag should stay up based on his ability to communicate and sound intelligent, which made me want to talk about tonight knowledge, because knowledge helps us accept responsibility. Because when we have factual knowledge, and that's why I said the truth lies in the facts. So when we're dealing with tough times and situations and circumstances, and we're gaining knowledge, we have to make sure we don't employ our emotions. Because I could have employed my emotions in that situation, and I wouldn't have experienced what I experienced. Now, let me say this. I left there going, you know what? I appreciate this guy. I know where he stands, clearly. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I know where he stands. He's not waffling at all, right? He's very dialed in to his belief. And that's okay, because I can appreciate that. And now I know how to deal with this guy. He's not going to ever babysit. I ain't going into business with this guy, because now I know what? I know where he stands, and I can appreciate that. I don't agree, but I know where he stands, and I can appreciate that. And I appreciate knowing where he stands. The danger is not knowing where someone stands, not only on that issue, but really anything. So it's important for us as leaders to know where we stand. And the way we do that is by having knowledge. And we seek knowledge, and we seek knowledge to understand. Because if we don't understand, we can what? We can perish, right? If we don't have knowledge, we can perish. We know that to be so. So having knowledge is very important. And having factual knowledge, because the truth lies in the facts. Not how I feel right now, not my emotional outburst right now, not my opinion. But it was an old show, Dragnet, and the guy used to say, just the facts. What are the facts? Just the facts? Yeah, exactly. So that's what we want, just the facts. That's where the truth lies. I have to be transparent when I'm leading followers through tough situations. Why? I have to be transparent, which means that oftentimes we think we're protecting people when we don't tell them everything, when we, hide certain things. The worst thing that can happen is you not tell someone something, and you have to have a conversation that starts off with, why didn't you tell me that? That affects your ability to be a leader. So we have to be transparent during tough times, because it will demystify that situation. And demystifying simply means that as bad as they thought it was, now they can really make a true judgment on how bad it really is when they have all the facts, because you told them everything. When I was a financial advisor, we had a saying, and you never ever wanted a client to come back to say to you, why didn't you tell me that? Because it appeared like you were hiding something. That will affect your ability to be a leader. So you want to be transparent. You want to demystify the situation. Prejudice, racism, things like that, they come about with the lack of understanding, the lack of knowledge, which translates into fear. in a tough time, in a tough situation, the more you can communicate about that situation to your followers, the less fearful they will be and the stronger they will be. You can remove the fear. There's a saying, do the things I fear and the death of fear is certain. Talk about the things I fear and the death of fear is certain. But if I hide those things that are making them afraid and something comes out about that thing, it's just going to escalate that fear. And now you're off being distracted by dealing with trying to de-escalate that fear, when you could have done it on the front end by what? Letting people know. Okay? So we're talking about leading through tough times. I have to understand the circumstance. I have to understand the tough time as the leader. You have to understand the tough time. With all you're getting, you have to have understanding of it. Absent of your opinions, absent of your emotions. Because when you can understand it, then now you can communicate it. If you don't understand it, you can't communicate it. You have to be able to understand that situation or that circumstance. Next, you're going to create a plan, right? If I say, okay, y'all, we're all going to get up. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to go outside right now. Everybody meet outside in 10 minutes. We're going to the moon. Most of you probably wouldn't budge. Somebody might call, 911. But I don't think I get a whole lot of cooperation, right? So if I say, okay, 6 months from now, we're going to go to the moon. Anybody that wants to go can go with me. It's a new program offered by NASA. We have to train for the next 6 months. They're going to pay each one of us $250,000. You have to weigh X amount. You have to be able to hold your breath for 10 minutes. You have to be able to wear the helmet that they're going to give us. Reverend J.C. couldn't go because of that requirement. We're going to meet every week at Winston Lake to start to get in shape. So if I lay out a plan, some of you might go, I can do that. I can help with that. I can do that. But if I just say, let's go do this without laying out a plan, then what? You probably wouldn't do it. So if you lay out a plan for the people that follow you, if you lay out a plan for your organization and you communicate that plan effectively during the tough times, again, you are easing the angst that the folks in your organization have. People like plans. Ladies, if you want, and this is a secret that men don't want you to know, if you want your man to get stuff done, give him a list, write a list, and stick it on the refrigerator. Don't say, take the trash out. Take the trash out. Take the trash out. Put trash on the list. If that's the thing you want done first, put it number 1 on the list. Oh, if you really want it done, put a little box next to the thing you need done. So you're going to say, take out the trash. You're going to put a little box so we can check it. So if you want stuff done, promise you, do it. Watch what happens. Because it's something about that list. It's like we can't stand seeing the list. We can't stand seeing 10 items on the list. We got to get it down to 2 right now. We got to get it down to 2 right now. Give us a plan. Give us a list. Watch what happens. That's all I'm going to say about that. So we got to have a plan, folks. We have to execute the plan. So now it's a tough situation. It's a tough time. I'm a leader, so I know what's on the horizon because I have vision also. So I know what's coming, right? So I communicate that to the team. I create a plan. Collectively we create a plan, and we have the plan in place. And now it's time to execute the plan to deal with the tough situation that we're in, and we do nothing. That affects your credibility as a leader. You have to execute the plan that you created. You have to do what the plan states. So if we say we're going to turn left at the very beginning, we're going to turn left unless there's a good reason for us to turn right. And oftentimes with the steps of your plan, you'll have to change the plan. So things will alter the plan. That's okay. But we still have what? A plan. So we got to have a plan. We got to have steps in that plan and put little boxes next to the steps in that plan. Alter that plan if you need to alter that plan. Okay? So now we talked about the tough times. We talked about the steps we have to take to get through the tough times. And now, more importantly, to get through those tough times, we have to have compassion to get through the tough times. You cannot be, early on we talked about leading with a carrot, meaning you're offering gifts or something to kind of lead people along, or leading with a stick, right? We can't use either one of these during tough situations, during tough times, because we have to be very honest, we have to be very transparent, and we have to have compassion, right? So therefore, we have to lead with our hearts. We can't get emotional during the tough times. We can't get emotional during the tough times and situations, right? We can't just use our opinions. We can't be clouded by a bunch of noise. We have to lead on our knowledge, our factual knowledge that we spent the time to get to understand that situation, right? So I want to spend some time now talking about the laws of the heart when it comes to leadership. The first one is the law of solid ground. The law of solid ground could very well be called the law of trust. The law of solid ground, or the law of trust, that's the foundation of leadership. It is the absolute foundation of leadership. If you lose trust from the people that you're leading, forget about it for a while. Forget about your ability to be an effective leader for a while. If you lose trust, then it becomes about something about that person that's going to keep them a part of the team. If I lose trust in my boss, I'm going to hang around because I need a paycheck, not because I want to advance the team, not because I want to help us get through this tough time. I'm hanging around because of my paycheck, which that's a reason to be there, but the best reason is to have somebody on that team that wants to be there to help meet the goals, the objectives, and the vision of the organization, especially during a tough time. Okay? Your trust while being a leader is like your currency. It's like money. It really is. In the financial services world, if you have $100 and you invest that money in a stock and you lose 50%, now you're at what? $50. Yeah, it's not a trick question. Yeah, $50. I lose half of it, I'm at $50. All right, I lost 50%, I'm at $50. So now I have $50 left, right? What percent do I need to grow it to get back to just break even, to get back to my 100 from 50? 100%, absolutely. I lost 50, but now I got to grow it back 100% to get back to break even. Not to get above water, to get back to break even. That's how trust is. That's how trust is. If I lose an ounce of trust, it's going to take a pound to get me back to break even. Just break even. Not above water, just break even. So trust is like your currency. It's like the money that you have in your wallet right now. It's like your savings account. It's like your retirement account. You do whatever you can to protect that because you have a specific goal tied to that. The exact same way you need to treat trust. It's like currency. It's like your money as a leader. If you lose it and you're broke from a trust standpoint as a leader, your job is going to be very, very difficult, and I will go on record as saying very, very close to being impossible. Okay, so trust is so important. Trust's primary ally is consistency. The words that are over the doors in this room. That's the primary ally of trust. If you're consistent, in doing what you say you're going to do, your trust account continues to build. It continues to build. That currency grows and grows. So your stock market for trust, right, is your consistency. Is your consistency. The interest is very interesting because it works on the positive side, but also on the negative side. Because if somebody's late consistently, leaders are like, I know he's going to be late. So consistency works on the positive side and on the negative side. I know he's going to be late. I know he's going to drop the ball on that because he consistently does that. He consistently doesn't care, right? So consistency can help work for you, can also work against you. Trust's primary enemy is poor character. That's the primary enemy of trust, poor character. And not to pick on anybody, one of the greatest presidents that's ever served as the president of the United States is Bill Clinton. I will give anybody in here $1 if when I said Bill Clinton, you didn't think Monica Lewinsky. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You're trying to trick me. You in church. And we've been taught that our gifts and our talents can get us places that our character won't what? Won't keep us. So the primary enemy of trust is poor character. And that's making decisions, that's doing things that you would not want on the front of the Winston-Salem Journal tomorrow. That's a simple rule. A wise man gave me that simple rule. Said, don't do anything that you wouldn't want to be on the front page of the local newspaper the next day. Okay? A trust building question is, what do you need to be successful? You want to help build trust? Ask this question of people that you lead. Again, somebody in your family, somebody on the team that you coach, someone that you manage in the organization where you work. Ask them this question. Now, not only just asking them this question, but then do whatever it is they say they need. You want to see your trust, your trust account take a little jump? And you can ask it differently. Ask them, what obstacles do you have that are in the way of you being your very best? And if they say, well, if I had pink shoelaces, and every time I look down, that would just increase my productivity by 30%. I'll probably score 20 more points a game if I had pink shoelaces. The next day, you need to have them 2 or 3 pairs of pink shoelaces. Watch what happens to your trust account. Watch what happens to your trust currency. If you ask that simple question and then follow through on what they said. Now, if it's something ridiculous, you got to have a conversation, right? So if Reverend JC says, I need a small hat to be more successful, we got to have a conversation. We're going to start with a mirror, and we'll work through that thing to get him a hat, but not with an S in the back of it. I love that dude. I got to pay him for this, too. I know I'm going to get it. I know I'm going to get it. The next law that when we lead from the heart is the law of respect. And if the foundation of leadership is trust, the foundation of trust is respect. The foundation of trust is respect. Respect has to be genuine. Respect can't be the respect that, folks get when they're in your presence, and then when they're in someone else's presence, you become somebody totally different. It has to be genuine. Interestingly enough, you're not tricking anybody with your respect that's not genuine. Because that word we talked about earlier, consistency, it's hard to fake it for a long time. Right? It's hard to fake it for a long time. So that respect must be genuine. Respect's primary ally is loyalty. It's loyalty. Over the past, I would say 3 years, 3.5 years, me personally been dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, travel a whole lot, working a whole lot, hadn't been at St. Peter's a whole lot. Stream services, and hadn't been as close to my spiritual father, Bishop Hash, as I have been in the past physically. But again, I will give anybody any amount of money if you could find anybody on the planet that can say that I've said or done anything negative towards that man. And I'm not bragging, I'm just talking about loyalty. It's not often. We don't see a whole lot of loyalty today. We don't see a whole lot of loyalty today because today it's more of a me society. And because you got it, I need to have it too. No, you need to go work for it. Right? Faith without works. So I can believe that it's coming and I can have faith, but if I don't go do the work, then it's not. Right? So loyalty is crucial to respect. Respect's primary enemy is indifference. If you want someone to lose respect for you, be indifferent about something that's important to them. Now, what's indifference? Indifference is I don't care. Go left and go right. Doesn't matter to me. Someone, again, not to pick on the flag coming down, but an African American gentleman that I know said publicly, I don't really care. I don't care, if it stays up or if it comes down. He made some points that kind of justify his point, but he was indifferent about it. I lost a little bit of respect for him. I would rather him say, I want it to stay up. You cannot be indifferent as a leader. Because if you're indifferent as a leader, basically you're saying, I haven't taken the time to understand enough why this is important to me. And your followers will say, also, you haven't taken the time to find out why it's important to me as well. So you cannot be indifferent. Indifference is the primary enemy of respect. Take a stand. Take a stand. You can change that stand if you want to. What was the guy's name who ran against Bush? John Kerry. He lost the race because he flip-flopped. He got the title, flip-flopper, because he was going back and forth on issues, right? It depends on the audience he was in front of, determined what his position was, right? So don't be indifferent. It will cause people to lose respect. A respect-building question is, what do you think? And by the way, we're going to do a whole session on questions that, as a leader, that you should be asking. One of the most powerful things you can do is have a conversation with somebody for 3 hours, and all you do is ask questions. They'll leave going, that's the best conversation I ever had. And all you did was ask questions. So, a respect-building question is, what do you think? So you got a problem, it's a tough time, it's a tough circumstance. And you as the leader, you have some ideas. You think you know how this should go. You think you know what direction you should go in. But if you pause and ask those that are on your team, those people that are in your inner circle, the penguins or the ants, if you ask them, what do you think? Man, your respect level just goes up, especially if you end up doing what they suggested. You may not, because you, as the leader, doesn't feel like that's the best direction to go in. But if you want to see your level of respect increase, ask people, what do you think? So what do you think? You may have already had the answer in your mind of which direction you're going to go, but ask that question, what do you think? And watch what happens. And the last law, when we lead from our heart, is sacrifice. As a leader, if you want to be a leader, how many people are leaders? Any leaders in the room? As leaders, you lose rights and you gain responsibility. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the grand poobah. I'm the man. What do you mean I lose rights? Yeah. You lose rights as the leader. I don't know if you remember that cruise ship that went down and folks were on the ship looking for the captain. That dude he was up on the dock. He was up on the dock, right? He's up on the dock going, man, that's a tough situation right there. Whoo, I hope they make it. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. You lose rights to run up on the dock when you're the leader. We gotta work on Saturdays. You lose the right to go play golf on Saturdays when other people are working. You're the first person that's there on a Saturday. You lose rights and you gain more responsibility as a leader. You sacrifice yourself. You're not running up on the dock when the ship is going down and people are still on the boat. We don't do that as leaders, right? I hope y'all are laughing at that, not that people are on the boat. Y'all are scaring me. As a leader, you sacrifice or you give up more. You give up more than anybody else. You give up more than anybody else as the leader. And oftentimes you do it quietly. You do it quietly. You make sacrifices quietly. You give up quietly. You don't have a fanfare. We're not going to march in and say, look what I did. We're not going to do that. Okay? You give up more. The primary ally of sacrifice is intention. Oftentimes, sacrifices, that's sacrifice. First of all, the word sacrifice, it just sounds, I don't know, it doesn't sound pleasant. Sacrifice. When you think, I don't know about you, when I hear sacrifice, I think Abraham going up a mountain, telling the son, yo, come on up, we gotta go take care of something. The son's like, all right. Right? That's what I think of. I think of sacrifice. I think of lamb being slaughtered. Right? But what if you thought of sacrifice as sowing? Right? What if you thought of sacrifice as a key part of the law of reciprocity? I'm going to reap what I sow. So if I sow good things into this organization, I sow good things into my team, then we're going to collectively reap good things. What if I thought about it that way, a little differently? And I have to, when it comes to sacrifices, again, because it has that negative connotation sometimes, I have to be intentional. I have to be proactive, and I have to look for opportunities to sacrifice, not just sacrifice in a passive, opportunity, but I have to proactively look for opportunities to make sacrifices as leaders, because again, that will make me a stronger leader or a more effective leader with my team. Sacrifice's primary enemy, again, is poor character. That dude that was up on the dock, he'll never captain another ship ever. Ever. Even if he wants to. Even if that's his, he can go buy him one and tool around the pond or the, lake or the ocean. But he'll never captain another cruise ship, right? Because everybody knew he was up on the dock. Poor character is a primary enemy. Another interesting thing about sacrifice, right now, everyone is sitting in the seat of someone else's sacrifice. You ever thought about it like that? You're resting in someone else's sacrifice. Reverend JC and I were having a similar conversation before we came down, and I thought about that. You're resting in someone else's seed. You're resting in someone else's blood, someone else's sweat, someone else's tears. If you care anything about anything, you want to pay that forward, because you wouldn't be able to sit where you're sitting right now, the way that you're sitting right now. We are sitting, we are resting in, we are partaking in someone's sacrifice that we never met. We never met them. in just about every aspect of our life. So if you have some kind of independence, some kind of freedom, some kind of anything that's positive in your life, it's because someone else, somewhere else, sacrificed that you've never met. If you care anything about anything, you should want to pay that forward so that somebody who will never ever meet you can sit in your sacrifice at some point in the future. You're resting in someone's sacrifice, pay it forward. If I want a sacrifice building question, I'll simply ask, what can I do for you? And mean it. What can I do for you? You know, you're walking down the street or you walk into a building, you see somebody and say, hey, how you doing? Everyone's like, I'm good, how are you? Oh, I'm good. What if they said, oh, I'm not good? I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. I had a bad day because of this, but you gonna stop? Did you really mean how you doing? What can I do for you? That's a great question when it comes to sacrifice. Again, sacrificing for your team, sacrificing for your family, sacrificing for, that office, sacrificing for your cell group, sacrificing for that ministry. So what can I do for you? That's a question a leader should be asking. The followers shouldn't be asking you that more than you ask them that. What can I do for you? So in summary, everyone is a leader. You're a leader in your gifting. If you can't sing, don't try to be a musician. Don't try to get on, don't try to be a lead singer on the praise team. If you can't sing, that's not your gifting. You can lead in other areas, I promise. Be intentional, be knowledgeable, transparent when leading through tough times. We have to understand that tough time. We have to plan for it, and we have to execute. We have to execute. When we do things like this, I don't know how many times I've spoken somewhere, or I was in the audience, and I ran into the speaker, and I said, yeah, I was at your such and such. And they said, oh, great. What have you done? The answer was nothing, right? So I didn't execute. So I kind of wasted my time, right? So we have to execute our plans. Understand, plan, and execute. Trust, respect, and sacrifice. Those are the leadership laws of the heart. Those are the leadership laws of the heart. More than importantly, be consistent. Be consistent. So I need somebody to help me remember something that we learned tonight. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. You're resting in someone else's sacrifice. Excellent. Anybody else? What else help me remember? Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Having to do so much more work to get it just back to break even if I lose trust. Yes, ma'am. Everyone is a leader. Mother Effie says everyone is a leader in their gifting. Yes, ma'am. Be transparent. And we don't have any men that learned anything. It's okay, though. Yes, sir. People like plans. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Execute the plan. Excellent. One more. Yes, ma'am. Leaders show up all the time. Very good. Give yourselves a round of applause, all these leaders in here.